So welcome to the UpLevel Podcast, Daniel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm so excited for this conversation. So
Yes.
folks who have been following my journey know that I had the honor to spend 13 weeks with you in a really tight, beautifully designed container for detoxification and cleansing. It was 13 weeks. Okay, so before we go into that, we're in takeoff of this season of leading through crisis, chaos, and change. And I thought there's no one better than to come and talk to our listeners about how what we consume impacts how we lead. And so for listeners, I want you to tune in to Daniel's wisdom. You heard his bio already. Is wisdom around what we're consuming and how this can be one of our key ingredients to navigate these times. Mm-hmm. So before we get into all of that, tell us, how the heck does an engineer and real estate developer become a detox guide and transformational coach?
Wow. Well, first of all thank you, Christy, for having me. I appreciate being here. Thank you for all the listeners that are tuning into this broadcast. There's going to be some power, some information, some wisdom. So just take a seat, take a deep breath, take a couple deep breaths, and just sit back and let yourself absorb this energy that is coming from Costa Rica right now, because we're both, coming live from different parts. Yes, past life, engineer, real estate developer. I did a TED talk about all the things that I had done while living in Iowa. I would say what got me here is noticing what was no longer working for me and my soul's purpose. And I think it took me a while to maybe distinguish that. And in reflecting, I realized these are the things that weren't necessarily working that I was pushing for, levels of success, or either what success looks like, whether it was monetary based or based in what I felt like, what I looked like. Those things became less important and less of a measure of my success, because ultimately those things weren't really going that well. And my stress levels were high. My income levels were just rocky and shaky. That was largely in part due to the industry that I was in and the time frame, right? This was 2020, starting to 2018, 2019, 2020, starting to exit from that reality of having many, real estate deals out and in the open that I was navigating and managing, as well as a family, a new son. Life was just really full, really active. And I just noticed that there was a lot of overwhelm in my system. So I wasn't able to really be with everything that was at that time. And Costa Rica had already been on my radar from 2019, coming here for this festival called Envision. Envision changed my life in many ways. That's like a whole separate podcast.
For sure.
But it really showed me the power of nature, the power of being in nature, and that some of us need to actually be in nature to grid or to ground in on a frequency that then eventually needs to be broadcast. I didn't know any of that. That was just me sort of coming in fresh eyes and with an adventurous mind. And then the next year, 2020, this is right around the time COVID was starting to happen, but hadn't been announced. So I came here pre-COVID, and basically I got stuck here. And it was like, okay, let's stay. Let's decide to stay. So I came here with my son and his mom, and we decided to stick around and see what medicine Costa Rica had for us. And that was not an easy decision, but it also was an easy decision based in what was happening everywhere else in the world.
The jungle claimed you, as it does.
Yeah, for sure.
Called you in. So if I'm going to synthesize how a former engineer, real estate developer becomes a detox guide and transformational coach, is your own lived experience. You were in a place with your own vitality where you thought, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. Yeah.
Yes, vitality, energy was shown to me as first priority.
Okay, so then what happened?
So then, yeah, long story short, we traveled around different places here in Costa Rica, ended up landing in the Caribbean. I lived there for a year. That's when I got introduced to different forms of plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca. So ayahuasca has been a primary teacher for me, and she's shown me so much. And ultimately, she showed me the power of plants, the power of plant medicine, and plant medicine without the psychedelic effects. So what does that mean? That means usually, in this case, common herbs that are available to the masses, that are available just growing on the side of the road, growing in most people's backyards. She actually showed me the path towards healing myself because I was in a state of dysfunction and dis-ease that I didn't know, I wasn't aware of. And she will definitely show people that.
Yeah.
And she showed me where my imbalances were. Both in my physical body and my emotional body, my energetic body. And she showed me the path to heal that. And this was all sort of, it just seemed like synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity at a time in my life where I was probably most unstable. You know, I didn't have the comforts of and the luxury of just endless amounts of money flowing in like before, you know, with my real estate business. So things were very tight. So my decision making needed to be very precise and also attuned to what my heart was really desiring for me, what my soul was calling me towards. So it's actually very simple and not necessarily easy to make these decisions because the path was very narrow.
The path was narrow, and yet it was like you were being called.
Yes.
So, okay, so I'm going to do a plug. I'm going to do lots of plugs for Daniel, people. So just bear with that. But like, I spent 13 weeks with Daniel, and I think we started out, we were going to do maybe a 7-week cleanse. But one of the things you're really masterful at is tuning into the individual and you customize the journey for them. Because one of our mutual friends, I met you through her cleanse and detox looked completely different from mine because we had different objectives. And I basically was doing it for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to let myself know that I was worthy of this type of care and time and dedication. It was like a declaration of self-love that I had never given myself the time or a valuable resource like Daniel. And the second reason was because I am in Costa Rica spending more time. I felt it was really imperative that I started to consume more of the plants and the nature that are here to let the land and to let this place know that I came in peace. You know, that I didn't come to cannibalize and colonize and do things the way I have in the past. Because what I tried the first like year and a half I was here is just, wherever you go, there you are. And I'm repeating my patterns of the West. Well, I think most people listening to this podcast, we understand that like it's a universal law. Wherever you go, there you are. And how can you integrate and co-create with your environment rather than force it and push it to make it like where you've come from? So these were the 2 main intentions. And as the conversation goes on, we'll talk about all of the incredible physical, energetic, mental and spiritual and relational benefits. But I want folks to have that context because if you're looking to care for yourself on a deeper level, this would be a process to invest in. And Daniel is an incredible guide. So
thank you.
Yeah, I'll let you rip off of that. Didn't have a question. I just wanted to set that context.
Yeah, that's powerful. Basically, in Costa Rica is a very different frequency than what we usually are experiencing in these other environments, especially the ones that are more populated, the ones that may have all this stimulus that disconnects us from the stimulus of nature. Nature is still very present. Everywhere we are, nature still has the most predominant frequency, no matter what anyone may say or what it may seem like. It's more about our ability to connect with that within ourselves. And simply put, the process that you went through was your desire to connect with your inner nature, your divine sense, which nature is providing a divine sense, a divine sensation of what really is around us. And so I appreciate that when you came to me, you were so activated, so turned on about what you wanted and what you wanted to receive from this process. And I'm not used to that as much, because most people have a bit more hesitation. They're a bit more apprehensive about, they know that they want it, but they just don't quite know either how to go about it or how it's going to affect their current situation. Right. So you're a great example of someone that you trusted your own alignment. You trusted in ultimately what it was that you wanted from the process, and you trusted the plants before you even were aware of how powerful they could be as influencers in your life. And that's ultimately what we're talking about. We're talking about plant consciousness. We're talking about how they influence our decision making, how they improve and influence our relationships, not only to ourselves, but to the world and the reality and the people within it. Yeah.
And this is something I want people to know when we're talking about the plants. It's teas. Okay, so Daniel brews up specific teas based on the different organs that you're looking to cleanse and detoxify, and he, does a mashup of all these different herbs. And so throughout the 13 weeks, every day I was drinking different teas at different times. And just that the ritual of having a warm, they didn't always taste great, because some of them were really bitter, and I don't love bitter, but some of them were sweet and I love sweet. So, depending on what an individual is after, this curation of these teas in itself gets them plants inside the system. And that, folks, and I'm telling you this because I'm so excited that I've reconnected to this knowledge, because I do think we all have this knowledge in us.
Yeah, totally.
Is that it reminded me that I am part of nature. I am part of the bigger thing. I'm not separate from it, and that I'm always supported. Okay, so in the context of leading through crisis, chaos, and change, part of what is having people be in a constant amygdala hijack and their nervous systems just being burnt out is because there's a misbelief that you are not supported. I was feeling that way. And I didn't know how much drinking these teas and getting these plants in my system would remind me that I'm always held.
Yes.
And I'm always connected.
Yes. Yes. When you look at nature, nature supports itself. Nature supports nature. So if we ever feel disconnected from nature, then we also are disconnecting ourselves from the higher degrees of support that are trying to stream in to us. Right. So your ability to sort of detox, which is an aspect of liberating your body of toxicities, liberating your body of stagnation, liberating your body of lack of clarity, liberating your body of just anything that's in the way from your energy ultimately flowing in the most optimal way. Right? When the energy is truly flowing, which the herbs are teaching us that when we ingest them, we're also receiving information that's always been there. Right? So I think that's a big piece. And you can maybe even speak to that about the information and the realizations that you were receiving within a few days or a few weeks of you starting the process.
I mean, it's been so profound that I wrote a 10-page essay. I just, and I've had 3 completion ceremonies, and because this was so, and folks who know me know that I have been dedicated to my personal growth and transformational path, but this was definitely one of the best and most potent. And the results are the measurements of success for my corporate folks have been impeccable. I've had a hormonal reset. I released 11 pounds. I have been rebalancing all of my relationships professionally and personally. Because of the, specifically in the parasite portion of the cleanse, I got really clear of like, wow, there's some things that are really out of balance. And I could see my contribution to that, and was able to approach the conversations feeling supported and held, Daniel, partly by you and by the process and the wisdom of the nature. And then the last, but like one of the most important things is that I reconnected to this adage that food is medicine. And I'd gotten off that. I was using food the past 4.5 years in the context of leading through crisis, chaos, and change. I was using food to numb. I had deep depression and some like major anxiety going on in the early days of the pandemic, and food became refuge. And I had actually put on 30 pounds. I had released 20, but I had a few more to go. And so the results, they just speak for themselves. I mean, and one of the things I love about working with Daniel is we don't like go in and set all the targets like that. So for my organizational folks, he's really, really good about helping you find that higher intention. And those were like the first two things I shared. But guess what? You're going to get all that ROI coming out down the bottom end too. And it's just incredible. Yeah. What do you think sets somebody up for success to go on a journey like this?
I would first ask a person to get clear about where the imbalances are at in their body, right? So when we look at imbalance in the reality right now, we have access to pretty much anything and everything that we would ever want to have access to, especially when it comes to information, right? So if there's if a person already has a broad view and they can ultimately consume or take in anything and everything, they need to get clear about what they're really wanting to absorb and uptake, right? What are you needing or wanting to absorb and uptake into your life, into your consciousness, into your digestive system that is going to elevate you forward, and not only elevate you, but elevate the ones that are around you. And I would say for those that are sensitive to what's happening, we realize that we need to be very attuned to nature. So when I think about this process, this is a twofold. It's getting clear and then determining why you're doing that. Is it to serve yourself? Is it to extract? Is it to remove? Is it to, what is it, like retain or to overconsume? Or is it to digest and to process and to based on what you're breaking down, to use that as a point of liberation for other people? So this is basically a topic about extraction versus absorption. And for people that are dealing with digestive issues, they're probably more concerned with what they're consuming versus what they're absorbing. Absorption is actually the key. And so that was one of the first things that we worked with you on, was your ability to absorb things. So you're eating sometimes great things, amazing things, but the body isn't able to process that because, again, there's so much coming in. The overstimulation, the abundant amount of information that we have access to, the body is at a level of heightened stress and anxiousness and overstimulation that it doesn't quite know what to prioritize. And in the name of the game in my world is digestion, right? What can you digest? What can you absorb? That's why we focus on those lower 3 chakras. And then that liberates the energy to come up into the higher spaces in the body, if we had to look at it through the lens of our chakra system. So yeah, I just hit all the time. That was coming through so strong. I was like, I need to write these things down because it's just coming through.
It's some good stuff, Daniel. Some real good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well,
hopefully, the listeners are really, reflecting on when they eat, when you daily consume.
Yeah.
Why, how do you feel when you're doing that? Right? Are you anxious? Are you stressed? Cool. No judgment here. right? And then how is your body responding to the things that you're taking in? Or have you also had to eliminate all these different things that your body can't process and can't absorb and can't digest? That's the number one sign that I see people go through is like, oh, I've had to eliminate all these things. My body, I get gas, I get bloated, I get indigestion, I have constipation. And then also my brain is foggy. I don't have the clarity that I used to have. I don't have the energy levels.
Yep.
That is when the system is a little bit more bogged down. There's stagnation, right, happening in our digestive flow. And then sometimes even the organs are impacted, which each organ determines ultimately what emotion is most absorbed, or each organ determines how we're processing the different emotions, right? Or emotions that we're not processing. So for instance, the liver, that's anger. So either we're repressing anger or there's a lot of anger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sadness, that's the kidneys. Heartache or grief, that's the lungs and the heart, right? So depending on how we've been impacted in our life also determines the type of process or the type of detoxification or regimen that people get to take on for themselves. So things can be sort of customized or personalized around ultimately what a person has been through and what they desire for their life.
Well, and I think that that's one of the most incredible things that you do, that you customize it, because you really, truly, deeply listen to what's happening for that person, even if, like, I didn't know some of this stuff was happening for me, but you can hear it because you're tuning in to all those incredible things you just said. Some of it still goes over my head, but like I recognize the intelligence of it. Like I know it somewhere within me, and this is what I want to encourage folks that are listening. If you have been feeling imbalanced or like there's stuck energy, stuck emotions, or if you're having, weight gain, like abnormal weight gain, abnormal weight loss, things with your skin, like irregulars in your sleep pattern. I mean, basically the times that we're living through, people, this is why we're having these conversations. It is a time of crisis, chaos, and change, which can be a catalyst for each of us to step more deeply into why we are here in this moment in time. And that's what we want to do at UpLevel, is remind people, like, yeah, it's hard, but you know what comes out of like difficult, mucky shit, like beautiful, beautiful beings, and we're in that, like that passageway. So Daniel, in your words, how does what we consume impact how we lead?
Yeah. So if we think about either lack of consuming the proper information or the overconsumption of certain things, leads to our inability to tune in with what's happening both internally and externally. And so for leaders, especially, leaders are needing to listen to everything, like their surroundings, the environment, the state of the reality in the world, the state of the human beings and their balance or imbalance, and to be able to be precisely in tune in the moment with the person or the people that are in front of them, to be as responsible, right? To have the ability to respond to those circumstances in the moment as possible, right? And so that requires our clarity. That requires a clear channel. That requires us to be connected, not to just the information that's been stored, right, in this body or in the mind, but to have access to the higher mind, to have access to the higher senses, to have access to our higher gifts that ultimately will lead humanity into the areas that bring balance to larger populations of people, through our acts, through our kindness, through our service, through what we build, through the businesses that we're investing in, through the people that we're investing in, through, ultimately our gifts coming online. Even if we don't feel like, well, I don't know, I'm not as spiritual, or maybe I used to be spiritual and now I'm in this world where I have to be so focused, keep my head down. All of it's okay, right? All of it's, you are where you are. and it's perfect where you are, right? There is no right or wrong. Nature is always finding balance. There's always life and there's always decay. There's always something growing and there's always something that's decaying or dying or composting. So sometimes we're in a mode of growing and expansion and catching the wind, and because the wind is moving a bit stronger, our roots are growing a bit deeper. Perfect. Sometimes we're in a pattern of decay where we're okay, I'm becoming my old thoughts, my old actions, my old ideas are now compost for this next version of myself to unfold. Right. So
Beautiful.
to be a leader is to also understand that you are where you are, you're perfect where you are, and know where you're going. Know as a seed, because a seed has all the information, right? Know that as a seed, you have everything within you that you need to grow into what you need to grow into. You just simply need the proper nourishment and the proper balance of the elements and the proper environment to become that thing.
What do you
become
say?
that person.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who will be like, oh, I just don't have the time for this. I can't, I'm running a massive organization. I have so many direct reports. I have family, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like this sounds like a bunch of people in Costa Rica talking about, herbs. Like, what do you say to them?
I mean, I can reflect on my own personal experience and say that before I was doing what I was doing now, I was definitely choosing the harder way. I was choosing the way that I knew how based on what I knew at the time.
Yeah.
What I was taught, right? And we're not really taught about nature. We're not taught about the rhythms of nature. We're not taught about God time, right? We're really talking about operating on God time, not human time. When you're in God mode, when you're on God time, nature really is listening to that, right? It's listening to how tuned in are you to nature's rhythm, not the time that, man ultimately creates, that sometimes even keeps people bound into their daily process, their daily patterns, their daily habits. And I think people need to ask themselves, like, do I feel liberated or do I feel held captive by my own thinking process? Right? Because our thinking, we're creators, no matter what. Our thinking will create situations and scenarios that may serve and may not serve us. So is how you're thinking serving you? Is how you're thinking, do you feel liberated? Right? Do you feel free? Do you feel held captive? These are the things that people need to ask themselves and reflect. And I noticed that the life I was living at the time, I didn't feel free. I felt held captive by my own desires for success in the way that I wanted to see that success. And ultimately, also, my soul had a very different path than the path that I was on. So sometimes, like,
yeah, we get the
people
bitch
just
slap.
have to get, have to get smacked over the head a couple times to then realize, like, oh man, like the path I'm on, cool. I'm successful in all these areas. I've got great income. I'm serving my client. And if something still feels off, pay attention. Ask yourself, okay, tune in, what's going on?
Yeah.
And the level of clarity that I'm ultimately wanting people to know that it's always available is around us all the time. And that information, that intelligence for sure is streaming through nature very powerfully. Everything that exists around us, if we just simply look, everything that exists around us in some way was either created from or inspired from nature, right? So man is always known to connect with nature.
Yeah.
Been taught in this society that it's less important to do that. Yeah. And this also isn't like a call for people to be about like climate change and we can change. Like that's cool too. That's all right. Yeah. But what about the climate change within you? Like, are you hot? Are you inflamed? Right?
Yes.
Are there things that are like swirling and whirling around that feel like turmoil that, just aren't quite balanced? That's the key to ultimately balancing out what's happening externally. And I'd love for you to speak more about that, because you got to see the internal shifts lead to the external shifts, maybe in some unexpected ways. And that's hard to convince people of when I'm just saying like, hey, these herbs will really help your external situations. It's hard to explain that.
It is. And as you've been talking, I've been playing back my own journey, because definitely there was, it was like a hero's journey for those who know Joseph Campbell's work. Like definitely in the beginning, I was like so excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to reclaim my food. I'm going to cook for myself, you know? And then I was like, oh, this is a shit ton of work, you know, like, wow, can I really do this? And there's recipes that Daniel provides, again, from this like adage that food is medicine. So every dish is helping intentionally to heal parts of like organs and parts of the cells and microbiome and all the things that were needing nourishment. I got to a place where I was really bored, and boredom is a thing for me. When I get bored, I'm like, what's next? I like to keep things exciting and moving. And you were so steadfast in, I want you to look at your relationship to boredom. I'm like, Daniel, stop it. Which was great. It was like, and for like quite a few weeks, you're like, yeah, you're just going to keep eating what you've been eating, because there's something here for you to really tune into. And it was so intuitive. You were so accurate. And then there was like let's call it, if I'm thinking of a blender, where then everything was in the blender and everything got kind of messed up, meaning my relationships, there was struggle professionally and personally. I was like, what am I doing? And then once I got through that part, there was the liberation that you spoke of, which is I will never go back to how I was relating to food before. I will never mistreat myself the way I was mistreating myself. Never again, you know? And I think that's why holding people in a container for longer periods of time, if one can, because we know that it takes time to create deep change. You know, 40 days, 40 nights, we need it. Longer if you can. But yeah, what you described, I experienced it, and I didn't realize that I was kind of blocked. I wasn't bringing in the most like clear thought, or coming from the most grounded, generous, kind version, like empowered version of myself. You said at the beginning, because I was like, I'm so busy, which is always my thing. You know, I'm like, I got this, I got that. You're like, yeah, that's cool. Like that's going to kind of sort itself out. And the way it has is that I took 2 weeks off for myself. Like I gave myself 2 weeks away from my laptop and my business, you know, which I haven't done that a whole lot in my journey. You know, I'm off the cleanse, and I'm making sure that I'm choosing high vibrational things to consume. I will say I've had a little bit of bread over the past little bit, and it was really good. Like fresh.
But you're digesting it. You're processing it, right?
I'm processing it where I wasn't before. Yeah. You know, and so, I mean, there's just, it's a complete transformation. And your mission, like from your bio, I just want to because you kept saying this and now I'm really understanding it. My mission, and Daniel's company is called getLIGHT, is to bring the medicine of clarity into people's lives. And like, that's what this process does. It helps if one is unclear, or if you're just like me, I didn't think I was unclear, but there was definitely like a smudge on the windows, you know, they become so clear. Like I'm so clear now on my mission and why I'm here. And I'm so much more confident in articulating it and putting empathetic boundaries in relationships where maybe my values are being trampled on a bit. You know, this is, gosh, I hope listeners, I hope you can hear how excited I am, because this was incredible.
Yeah. You're saying you're moving the gold forward for sure. The golds, not the gold, the gold.
The gold.
Yeah. So that people can really sense that and feel that. One thing that I want to highlight that I think is important for people that are in their own process with life, right? Time tends to be a factor. With this process, there's there's twofold. There's also there is not a one size fits all. Everything can be customized or fit around what a person needs and what they're able to take on in the moment. There's processes that are as short as 4 days, and there's processes that are as long as 6 weeks, right? And you just happen to do a combination of those things that were all appended to each other, right? They were all combined because you had the space and the time and ultimately the desire to do that. So a person that's just like, hey, I want to really feel like a boatload of relief in a short period of time, they're going to maybe go through that 7-day process. And then after that, they can see like how much liberation, how much change, how much shift happened. And shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can cuss, but you know.
Yeah, we can. Lots of pooping. Get ready for that. And like gestalt with your poop. Like that was a brilliant, piece of wisdom is like actually ask when you're releasing, what am I releasing? I mean, to bring that level of consciousness to our bodies, I have never done anything like that before. It was so liberating. And I was releasing a lot of other people's crap, literally, that I was holding, which we all do. You're a leader of a team. You're holding all your direct reports crap. You're holding your boss's crap. Maybe you're holding your parents' crap, your lineage crap. Like, just like get it out of you. It's not yours to hold. Liberate yourself.
Yeah. Woo! Let's let that breathe. Wow. Incredible.
Daniel, what the heck is happening on planet Earth right now? What is your take on this moment in time?
I think we're being asked to really trust our own inner leadership, right? And that clarity that you talked about, if there is a greater force, if people believe that there's a greater force that's sort of inviting or leading us as humanity towards this evolutionary process, yeah, maybe in some way it can be spurred and reflected by humanity itself, right? By humanity's chaos sometimes, by humanity's lack of structure or what seems like lack of organization. And through the lens of clarity, we'll actually see that everything's being guided, everything's perfectly aligned, and we're ultimately being given the choice on what to place our trust in. Not who, but ultimately what? What is what within us are we placing our trust in? Are we placing it within ourselves? Are we giving our power away to our parents' patterns and our histories and our herstories? Are we placing our trust ultimately in like a government body, which we can already see is kind of like a dysfunctioning,
wobbly situation?
Yeah, it'd be like maybe the government. It kind of looks like, somebody who's not doing that great. Like, yo, are you okay? Like you look like you're a little bit out of it. And are you kind of bipolar? Like what's going on? Is your mental health, are you stable? Right. Yeah. We almost have to be looking at things through like, is this thing in its optimal health and its optimal function? Yeah. Because what I think people may be missing is like, because maybe there's a part of them that's not there. They don't really know what optimal looks like and feels like. Mm-hmm. And for sure, this process is a way to get there. There's many tools that we can step into. But this, for me, just happens to be a tool that optimizes not only our individual cells, but our connection to the greater whole. Mm-hmm. Because when we're dealing with herbs and plants, where are they connected to? They're connected to the earth, the greater whole. Herbs that grow here also literally grow in Australia, also grow in Oregon, also, right? So there's this tapestry that if we dive a little bit deeper below the surface of distraction, we'll see, oh my gosh, there's something already here for me. I just simply have to get curious and ask myself, is it important enough for me to take this piece on? There's something for everyone. There's medicine for everyone, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can people...
I love the state that the world is in, because it ultimately brings our attention and focus and turns our sword really hot, really sharp. We have to cut through the BS, right? We have to cut through the distractions and get clear about our soul's purpose, our soul mission, why we're here. And we have to find the alignments, right? Find the people, right? That are going to help us get there, because we for sure can't do it alone. We were never meant to do that. Our world, this reality was already, as we see it and the way that it functions, was already built on organizations that we call tribes, right? Organizations that we call nations, right? Literally the what we see in our physical reality, especially in the US, was built on the intelligence and the connection of people that came before what we see and how well connected they were to each other. Mm-hmm. So if we want to ever live out that harmonious experience where we can build realities exactly how we want them to be, then we have to become that harmonious people again.
How can people connect to you? We will put this all in the show notes, but if they want to work with you, how do they connect to you?
Yeah, so I do free assessments for people that want to get more curious about what's happening in their body. People can do things at home wherever they are. We ship our products to the US, to Canada, to Mexico, trying to also get into Europe a bit more because people for sure need those things there. And once people get clear about ultimately what they want, especially if they're doing detoxes where they are, then they can come here to Costa Rica and do personal work here on this land, because I would say that's probably the most powerful and the most optimal. And I think we're putting some things together also for people to be able to do that. So those are ways that, people can get in tune and in touch with themselves and with me in a greater way.
Amazing. And one of the things I want people to know too is beyond the plants and the detoxification guidance, Daniel is a sound doctor. And I have done some sound healing, but never had I had a sound surgery. And as part of the completion of the 13 weeks, my partner and I went up to the mountains where Daniel lives, and we had a sound surgery. And folks, this is incredible. This man's talent and just the medicine of sound that comes through him, again, going to each organ, kind of knowing what sound, what call, what vibration it needs. And if this sounds wild and wacky to you, then call Daniel, because this would be good for you to come to Costa Rica and have a sound surgery. Yes, and I know you're holding a big vision of like bringing sound also as part of a way to support humanity through these times, because it is such a healing modality.
Yeah. Yeah. The world is the old world as we know it and as we sometimes see it, where we see, let's say, the Great Pyramids or these structures in Mexico and these structures in England. These structures were all built as largely tools to either hold or amplify sound. And they were gridded in these specific ways and constructed, and many of them were operating at the same time. It wasn't like, oh, these were in this area at this time. And some of them were operating simultaneously throughout the planet. And those were to kind of like how satellites and antennas broadcast. That's essentially what it was like. It's like these things were broadcasting certain frequencies to hold the planet in higher states of consciousness. So we as humans, guess what? We are those antennas right now, right? Because those, let's say, those great structures, those great monolithic structures appear to be offline. We're being asked as human beings to become those temples, to become those resources, those resonators that are basically broadcasting higher and higher frequencies of love, higher and higher frequencies of intelligence, of safety, of connectedness. And we can do that for sure when we're speaking less and listening more. And sound is just a communication tool, and the way that I do it so that people are not listening to what I'm saying, but they're listening to the frequency and the energy and the emotion and the compassion underneath the language, underneath the words. So that's what you were able to experience. And I trust that, yeah, people that feel activated by that, they'll find me.
You
Sure.
definitely got to find Daniel. Folks, you need some of this. And we need to go into organizations and really work with sound to support folks to navigate crisis, chaos, and change, which has just this been, the inevitable, consistent experience for many folks. Daniel, thank you so much. There's so much more wisdom, and I wanted our listeners to come to your well. This is just like a sample, people, of the wisdom from this incredible human. And you know where to find him. You're going to see it all in the show notes. But if you have a final prayer in this moment for humanity, what would it be?
Trust in what is and what will be. And you know what will be because you have a sense of where you are, if you're on track, off track, and just trust your own intelligence, trust your own guidance. And if there's anything that can help bring clarity or to amplify what is already within you, that's what this sort of work does. You have everything that you need already inside of you. We're just simply creating more spaciousness for that to be known to you. So
go seek that clarity, folks. Thank you, Daniel, so much. I'm so grateful for you and all that you've done to bring yourself to this moment, to bring your medicine to the planet. And thank you to our listeners. I hope that you got great value from this conversation, and it's going to support you to lead through these times.